She was running. Not from anything. Toward something. Toward someone who had maybe 6 minutes left to live. Dr. Amara Osei's sneakers hit the wet pavement of the hospital parking garage at 11:47 p.m. Her scrubs were already on. Her badge was clipped to her chest. Her phone was pressed to her ear, the charge nurse giving her real-time updates in a voice that barely held together. BP is crashing. 70 over palp. Dr. Osei, we need you now. I'm 2 minutes out, Amara said. She wasn't. She was 47 steps from the garage elevator when the lights hit her. Blue and red, spinning hard off the concrete walls, turning everything into a strobe. 2 patrol cars, parked diagonally across the pedestrian path like they'd been waiting for something. Maybe they had. Or maybe they'd just seen a black woman sprinting through a hospital parking structure at midnight and decided that was enough. Stop. Right there. Amara stopped. She knew what stopping cost. She had done the math 1,000 times in her life, the way every black woman learns to do it before she even understands why. She stopped, turned slowly, kept her hands visible. The phone still pressed her ear. Put the phone down. Officer, phone. Down. Now. She lowered it. On the other end, she could hear the charge nurse's voice, tinny and distant. Dr. Osei? Dr. Osei, are you there? She was there. She just couldn't get to where she needed to be. And somewhere on the 4th floor of Mercy General Medical Center, a woman named Diane Hargrove was bleeding into her abdominal cavity at a rate that made everything else irrelevant. Officer Dale Cummings had been on the force 11 years. He had a commendation for bravery, a plaque on his lieutenant's wall, and an instinct he trusted completely. His instinct, tonight, told him something was wrong with this picture. Black woman, running, expensive sneakers, hospital employee badge, sure, but those were easy to fake. Parking garage, late at night. He'd seen enough to know that things weren't always what they appear to be. What his instinct did not tell him, because instincts built on bias don't come with correction features, was that the badge on her chest bore the logo of the hospital 40 feet behind him, that the scrubs she was wearing were the specific deep navy of Mercy General Surgical Unit, that the name printed on that badge was followed by the letters MD, FCS, and that Dr. Amara Osei was one of 17 board-certified cardiothoracic surgeons in the state of Georgia who could perform an emergency aortic repair. Only one of them was in this parking garage right now. His partner, Officer Tracy Bolin, had hung back slightly. Something in her expression suggested discomfort that hadn't yet solidified into action. ID, Cummings said. My badge is right. Photo ID. Amara's jaw tightened by a fraction that most people wouldn't have noticed. Cummings noticed. He filed it under suspicious. My wallet is in my locker, she said, the words coming out controlled and careful. I'm a surgeon. I'm in the middle of an emergency response. There is a patient in cardiac. Ma'am, I need you to calm down. I am calm. She was. Her voice was surgical. I am asking you to verify my credentials through the hospital. You can call the main desk right now, and they will confirm. I'm not calling anyone until you show me ID. She looked at him for a long moment. In that moment, an entire education's worth of experience passed behind her eyes. 22 years of being the only one in the room, of being asked to prove things that no one else was asked to prove, of smiling when she wanted to scream, of explaining when she should have been listened to, of staying still when everything in her said move. She stayed still, because she knew what happened when black women didn't. Officer, she said very quietly, someone is going to die. Cummings tilted his head. That's a pretty dramatic thing to say. It's not dramatic. It's medicine. Aortic aneurysm with active rupture. Every minute I stand here. What I'm seeing, Cummings said, cutting her off, is someone who was running in a secured garage at midnight with no verifiable ID, getting agitated when questioned by law enforcement. He glanced at Bolin. Call it in. Bolin hesitated. That hesitation was a door barely cracked. Neither of them walked through it. The handcuffs went on at 11:51 p.m. Not tight enough to cut, just tight enough to make the point. Just tight enough that when Amara Osei raised her hands to the small of her back, she couldn't stop thinking about the patient's chest cavity she was supposed to have her hands inside right now. For minutes. That's what an aortic rupture gives you, sometimes. For minutes between "we can fix this" and "we couldn't fix this." Sometimes less. She was marched toward the first patrol car. The charge nurse had hung up. The phone lay on the concrete behind her, still lit, the call timer running. Inside the hospital, things were deteriorating at exactly the rate the laws of physics guaranteed they would. The EOR team had a resident standing at the table who had performed exactly 0 emergency aortic repairs. The attending cardiologist on call was 23 minutes out, having just woken up from a dead sleep in the suburbs. The nurses were calm in the way that people become calm when panic becomes counterproductive. The anesthesiologist was keeping the patient alive through sheer pharmacological willpower and was not going to be able to do so indefinitely. And the patient's husband was in a family waiting room on the 4th floor, still wearing his dinner jacket from the retirement gala he'd left 40 minutes ago when the hospital called. His name was Deputy Chief Gerald Hargrove, 31 years with the Atlanta Police Department, the man whose signature was on Dale Cummings's last commendation letter. Nobody had thought to tell him what was happening in the parking garage. Not yet. Amara was in the back of the patrol car for 6 minutes before she spoke again. She had used those 6 minutes the way she used the first 6 minutes of any crisis assessment. She ran the variables. She counted what she had and what she didn't. She identified the single most efficient path from where she was to where she needed to be. "Officer Bolin," she said. Bolin turned from the front passenger seat. Something in her expression was different from Cummings's. Not sympathetic exactly, but present, like she was actually listening to the frequency on which Amara was broadcasting. "I need you to call the hospital's main operator," Amara said. "Ask for Dr. Yolanda Price. She is the chief of surgery. She will confirm my identity in under 60 seconds. That's all I'm asking. We're processing you at the—" "Officer Bolin." Amara's voice dropped. Not softer, more precise. "I understand the procedure. I understand why you're following it. I'm asking you to make one phone call before we leave this garage, because once we leave, someone dies. That is not hyperbole. That is physiology." Bolin looked at Cummings. Cummings was already on his radio. Bolin looked back at Amara. There was a long, suspended moment, the kind that hinges on something that isn't quite courage and isn't quite conscience but lives in the narrow valley between them. Then Bolin pulled out her personal cell phone. Cummings saw it. "What are you doing?" "Making a call." "Put that away." "We're not." "One call, Dale." Bolin's voice was flat. "Final. It takes 30 seconds." Cummings stared at her. 11 years of partnership compressed into a single look. Bolin held it. He looked away first. Dr. Yolanda Price answered on the second ring, because Dr. Yolanda Price always answered on the second ring. She had been chief of surgery at Mercy General for 9 years, and she had not survived 9 years in that position by being hard to reach. "This is Dr. Price." "Doctor, this is Officer Tracy Bolin with APD. I need to verify the identity of a—" "Where is she?" Not a question. A statement delivered at a velocity that made Bolin blink. "Excuse me." "Dr. Osei. She missed her surgical call 6 minutes ago. She has never in 4 years missed a surgical call." "Where is she?" Bolin processed this. "She's in our custody, ma'am. Parking garage, Mercy General East." The sound that came through the phone was not a word. It was the sound of a person who has just understood something catastrophic. "Put her on the phone. Right now. And then I need you to release her immediately, or I will have your badges before sunrise. Do you understand me?" Bolin passed the phone between the seat partition. Amara took it with her cuffed hands. "Yolanda, tell me what you need. Get Price to talk to whoever is on scene. I need 30 seconds with the team, and then I need these cuffs off." Already done. Dr. Price had apparently placed 2 calls simultaneously, because her voice was completely unhurried. Gerald Hargrove is also on his way down. Amara closed her eyes for exactly 1 second. Then she opened them. "How's Diane?" A pause that told her everything. "Still there," Dr. Price said. "But you need to hurry." Deputy Chief Gerald Hargrove came through the garage stairwell door at 11:58 p.m. He was a large man, 60s, silver at his temples, and he was still wearing the dinner jacket with the Mercy General Charity Gala lanyard around his neck. He had been at that gala because the hospital had honored him for 30 years of partnership with their community outreach division. He had given a speech about the importance of trust between law enforcement and the communities they served. That speech had ended 2 hours ago. He saw the patrol car. He saw Cummings standing beside it. He saw, through the rear window, the back of Dr. Amara Osei's head. He walked toward Cummings at a pace that could only be described as controlled. Cummings saw him coming and went rigid in the way that patrol officers go rigid when they see someone whose rank they instinctively feel before they identify it. Deputy Chief. Cummings's voice cracked at the top. "Open the car," Hargrove said. "Sir, we have a situation with Dale." Hargrove stopped 3 feet away. His voice was very quiet. "My wife is on a table upstairs. The surgeon who is supposed to save her life is in your back seat. Open the car." Cummings opened the car. Dr. Amara Osei stepped out. Her hands were still cuffed. Hargrove looked at them, and something moved through his face that was not anger and not grief, but some precise combination of both that had no clean name. He looked at Cummings. Key. Cummings produced it. Hargrove unlocked the cuffs himself. His hands were steady. A man who had learned a long time ago to save the shaking for later. Amara rubbed her wrists once, briefly, then looked at him. "Gerald," she said, and her voice carried something that wasn't softness but wasn't hard either. "I'm going to go take care of your wife now." He nodded. Once. His jaw was tight. She went. She was scrubbing in at 11:59 p.m. 1 minute. 60 seconds between now and midnight. Between the version of this night where Diane Hargrove lived and the version where she didn't. The or was controlled chaos, which is the only kind of chaos that surgical teams produce. The resident stepped back without being asked. The nurses moved with the efficiency of people who have seen a surgeon arrive in crisis and know exactly what to do. The anesthesiologist looked up when Amara pushed through the door and something in his face loosened. "BP," she asked. 60 over palp. Holding barely. "How long can you hold it?" A pause. 10 minutes. "Maybe. Give me 8. She did it in 7. The waiting room on the 4th floor was quiet at 1:14 a.m. when Dr. Amara Osei walked in. She was still in her scrubs. There was a small blood stain above the left knee that she hadn't noticed yet. Her hair was pressed flat where the surgical cap had been. Gerald Hargrove was the only person in the room. He was sitting in a chair that was too small for him, hands clasped between his knees, staring at the floor tile with the focused intensity of a man who has run out of things to do and is simply enduring the space between the last moment and the next. He looked up when she came in. She sat down across from him. "She's stable," Amara said. "The repair went well. She'll be in the ICU for 3 to 4 days, but the bleeding is controlled and her heart function is intact. Barring infection or secondary complication, she's going to be okay." Hargrove stared at her. His eyes were very bright. "Thank you," he said. The words came out rough, like they'd been waiting in a narrow place for a long time. Amara nodded. A silence fell between them. Not an uncomfortable one. The kind that happens after something enormous has passed through a room and left everything rearranged. Then Hargrove said, "How long were they holding you?" 12 minutes. He absorbed this. His jaw worked. 12 minutes. "Yes. I want to know everything that happened." His voice had changed. It was the voice she suspected he used in rooms where decisions were made. Every word. Every action. "I want the names of everyone involved." Amara looked at him steadily. "I know you do." "That's not," he stopped. "Try it again. That should not have happened to you." "No," she agreed. "It shouldn't. And it also shouldn't have happened to the woman they stopped at this same garage last March who wasn't a surgeon and didn't have a deputy chief for a patient's husband." She paused. She was a nurse, coming off a 12-hour shift. They held her for 38 minutes. Hargrove was very still. Her complaint was filed, Amara said, and closed. Internally, the silence was different now. Heavier. "I've spent my career," Hargrove said slowly, "believing that the problems are individual. Bad actors. Specific failures. Not. I know. But you're telling me." "I'm not telling you anything you don't already know," Amara said gently. "I think you've known it for a while. I just think tonight made it harder to look away." He didn't say anything. She stood up. "Go see your wife. She's going to want to hear your voice." He stood too. At full height, he was nearly a foot taller than her. He looked at her with an expression that was something between gratitude and reckoning. "Dr. Osei," he said, "I'm going to make this right." "I know," she said. "I'm counting on it." The formal review began 72 hours later. Deputy Chief Hargrove convened it personally, which was the first signal to the department that this was not going to follow the usual trajectory. He requested the garage security footage. He obtained the records documenting the time of Dr. Osei's arrival and cross-referenced them against the dispatch logs. He pulled the complaint filed by the nurse the previous March, and then the 4 complaints filed in the 18 months before that from the same location. The pattern was not subtle once someone was looking for it. Officer Dale Cummings was placed on administrative leave pending review. His partner, Tracy Bolin, was not. Her decision to make the call to Dr. Price was noted in the review file with language that her sergeant described as the most positive write-up I've seen in 11 years. Bolin went to see Dr. Osei 2 weeks later. She found her in the hospital cafeteria, eating lunch alone between surgeries. "I should have made the call sooner," Bolin said. She didn't sit down, just stood there, holding a coffee she wasn't drinking. Amara looked up at her. "You made it. Not fast enough." "No," Amara said, "but you made it. That matters." Bolin looked at her for a long moment. "I've been thinking about what you said. About the nurse. The 38 minutes. I figured you might be. Is there a file? On what happened to her?" Amara reached into the bag beside her chair and produced a folded paper. She slid it across the table. Bolin picked it up. "Read it." Her expression moved through several things that weren't quite words. "How many like this?" she asked. "In this garage?" "7 that I know of." "In this precinct's coverage area?" Amara paused. "We stopped counting at 20. Bolin folded the paper carefully, put it in her jacket pocket. "I'd like to give a statement," she said. "For the review." Amara nodded. "I know someone you can call." The review expanded. That was the phrase the department used publicly. The review expanded, which was their way of saying that what had begun as a single incident investigation had become something considerably larger, because single incidents, when you actually look at them, turn out almost never to be single. The formal findings, released 6 weeks after the night of the garage, were 17 pages long. The summary was 4 sentences. Officers in the East Precinct coverage area applied inconsistent stop-and-identify procedures that demonstrated measurable disparity by race and gender. Complaint mechanisms designed to address these disparities had been systematically under-resourced and under-prioritized. The department's response to prior incidents created conditions in which these disparities persisted and intensified. Comprehensive reform is required. Comprehensive. That was the word that mattered. Deputy Chief Hargrove presented the findings at a press conference. He stood at the podium in his dress uniform, and he read the 4 sentences without flinching, and then he said something that was not in the prepared remarks. "My wife is alive because Dr. Amara Osei got to the operating room in time," he said. "She almost didn't. That is the version of events I have to live with. This department has to live with it too. And living with something means doing something about it." He laid out 12 specific policy changes. Body camera activation protocols. Third-party credential verification standards for medical emergencies. An independent civilian oversight board with actual investigative authority, not just advisory capacity. A formal partnership with Mercy General and 4 other hospitals to establish clear protocols for medical personnel response situations. And a reopening of every complaint filed in the East Precinct coverage area over the previous 3 years. Every single one. Dr. Amara Osei was asked to speak at the policy rollout ceremony. She stood at the podium in a room full of police brass and hospital administrators and city council members, and she looked at all of them for a long moment before she said a word. Then she said this: "I became a surgeon because I believe that the body can be repaired. That damage, even serious damage, is not always permanent. That if you find the problem precisely enough and address it completely enough, the patient can recover." She paused. "That belief is what got me through 22 years of medical training. And it's what got me through 12 minutes in the back of a patrol car while someone was dying." She looked at Hargrove, who was standing to the side of the room. "I didn't tell Officer Cummings who I was because I shouldn't have needed to. The system should not require me to prove that I deserve to exist in a space before it extends me the basic assumption of good faith. That's not a policy problem. It's a values problem. And policies that don't address the values underneath them are just better-looking paperwork. A silence in the room. What I'm hoping, she continued, is that these 12 policies are the beginning of something, not the conclusion of something. Because Diane Hargrove survived. The nurse who was held for 38 minutes last March. Her name was Joyce Mensah. She survived too. But that's not the standard we should be measuring ourselves against. Survived is not the same as thrived. Got through is not the same as got justice. She stepped back from the podium. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Gerald Hargrove started clapping, and the room followed. 6 months later, the Independent Oversight Board took its first formal complaint. A man named Andre Tillman, 24 years old, had been stopped and detained outside a downtown courthouse while wearing a law school intern badge and carrying a briefcase. He had been held for 19 minutes before anyone verified that he was, in fact, an intern at the district attorney's office. He filed the complaint the same day. The board responded within 48 hours. The officer was retrained. The incident was logged in the public database that the Oversight Board now maintained. The DA's office sent a letter to the department that used words like unacceptable and pattern and accountability. It wasn't perfect. It was a start. Andre Tillman got a call from Dr. Amara Osei that evening. She had heard about the complaint through channels she'd spent 6 months building. You filed it, she said. I filed it, he confirmed. Good. A pause. Dr. Osei, he said, can I ask you something? Sure. When they put the cuffs on you. In the garage. What did you think about? She was quiet for a moment. I thought about Diane Hargrove's aorta, she said. I thought about the exact location of the repair and whether I was going to be fast enough. I thought about the resident who was standing at the table who had never done one before. Another pause. And I thought about everyone who'd stood in that same spot without a deputy chief's dying wife on the 4th floor. And I thought, when I get out of this, I'm going to make sure the getting out doesn't depend on that. He was quiet. Did you get a lawyer? She asked. Working on it. I know one, she said. I'll send you her number. Diane Hargrove was discharged 11 days after the surgery. She went home to a house full of flowers and a husband who cried in the kitchen for 20 minutes before he thought anyone was watching. 3 weeks later, she called Dr. Osei. I want to thank you, Diane said. Gerald told me everything. You don't need to thank me, Amara said. That's the job. No, Diane said. I want to thank you for what you did afterward. The testimony, the oversight board, all of it. A pause. I almost lost everything that night, Diane continued. And what I keep thinking about is that you almost lost something too. 12 minutes. And you turned it into this. Her voice was careful. I don't know how you do that. Amara thought about it. I think, she said slowly, that when you've spent your whole life being told the system doesn't work the way it's supposed to work, you either accept that or you fix it. I'm not very good at accepting things. Diane laughed. It was a good laugh, solid and warm, the laugh of someone who had recently remembered what it felt like to breathe. Neither is Gerald, she said. I know, Amara said. That's why I think we're going to be okay. The parking garage at Mercy General has a new sign now. It's not large. It doesn't draw attention. It's bolted to the wall near the elevator on the side, closest to the hospital entrance. Plain lettering, institutional font. Medical personnel responding to emergencies. Use designated emergency path. Badge verification at main desk. All personnel have the right to proceed without delay. Below it, in smaller text, a number. The Oversight Board's direct line. Dr. Amara Osei walks past it every night she's on call. She never stops to look at it. She doesn't need to. She knows what it says. She wrote the language herself.